covered. That was awesome. Do it again.
Hello and welcome to today's episode. In this most exciting snowboard interview, I show off some scratches, a skier takes the wrong way to get my attention, and I do a little hiking. All of that is to come, but first, we need to talk about a man who is better at snowboarding than just about every person who has ever been alive. They say that growing up on the ice coast of the United States is the best place to learn technical skills. The mountains of Vermont, for example, typically are covered with more ice than snow. This means that some of the greatest competitors on snow come from the eastern United States. Andrea Mae Lawrence, Billy Kidd, Bodie Miller, and Michaela Schifrin are some names that you might recognize. However, one name stands out despite having 0 Olympic appearances. Jake Blauvelt grew up riding and competing on the crusty snow of Vermont. It was here that he excelled, riding in competitions culminating in a US Open Slopestyle Championship. However, he chose to go a different route with his riding, focusing on filming, apart from an appearance in Travis Rice's newest competition format, the Natural Selection Tour. And he has another influence in the snowboarding world, designing equipment. So I think that designing your own board would be the ultimate experience in snowboarding. Pro surfers all the time will shape their own boards and just make it their own. Even though I've never done either shaping a snowboard or shaping a surfboard, when I see somebody shaping a surfboard, they usually are starting with a big chunk and then they're shaving it down to the shape that they want it to be. Of course, there are other ways to make surfboards as well, but that's the most common way that I see it being done. The beginning of Jake's career took him through the competition circuit. He earned some solid skills growing up on the ice coast of Vermont. These skills allowed him to expand his style, and it paid off. Jake designed his board to be twitchy, like the pipe boards he grew up on, while still having the ability to float on powder. What is it about this board that allows it to do that? Well, let's talk about the profile. It's a directional hybrid camber, which doesn't mean that the board comes with a battery. It means it has rocker in the nose up to the front, and then the board is cambered all the way back to the tail. And this creates some interesting combos for the board. The rocker at the front creates float for deep powder. It creates a more nimble action when going from edge to edge for a quicker and more stylish turning. And then the camber in the back gives you lots of room to load the board and get some spring for those power turns and airs. Now this all sounds nice and good on paper until you pick the thing up. Just touching it, you'll notice that it is a very stiff board. Probably about an 8 out of 10 in terms of stiffness. It's called a medium stiff, but when I ride it, it feels much more stiff than what I'm used to. Traditionally, this amount of stiffness means 2 things. 1, it's harsh and unforgiving and doesn't absorb much under your feet. And 2, it doesn't have any spring from the camber to pop you through turns and airs. Traditionally, this is the case. However, when you get your whole weight onto the Berzerker, it starts singing a different song. This is actually one of the smoothest riding boards out there, and you don't get any harsh feedback under your feet. It absorbs bumps and chatter and sends you an email about it with the subject line, "Not urgent, open later." The Berzerker pops too. The spring is harder to load than on some other boards, but you get out of it what you put into it. And when you watch Jake ride, that can be quite a lot. He can demonstrate that this thing can really get up. And the reason it's able to do this is because of some clever material combinations used in the board. The core is made of 3 kinds of woods: aspen, bamboo, and paulownia. We're going to spell it out on the screen for you so you can. These 3 woods, Ride says, are combined to give, quote, the perfect balance of strong and light. Additionally, the board has, quote, carbon slime rods, which are slender carbon slats that fit inside of the board that are filled with a urethane slime core. Carbon is there to spring in takeoffs, and the slime is there to absorb landings. Maybe the biggest change that they made to the Berzerker was that they added 8 millimeters of taper, which allows you to sink the tail and get the nose up in the powder. And then the other change that they made was that they tightened up the radius on the side cut to improve turn initiation and make the board feel a little bit more twitchy like Jake likes. So I made the choice to get the Berzerker back in 2018, and it has been my main stick ever since. I find that I'm drawn to steep terrain with it, often choosing to boot pack to the higher peaks at resorts in order to find that terrain and the deeper powder that hasn't been touched by as many of the resort's pedestrians. It's this kind of terrain where I've found that the Berzerker really thrives, and even though I ride the longest version of the Berzerker, I ride a 167 wide, it's very nimble, and I'm able to maintain a lot of control and make really quick turns. I've also achieved my fastest speeds ever on a snowboard with this board, clocking in I made it to 55 miles an hour before a ski patroller stopped me. So for me, the easy choice is the Berzerker. I love this board. I recommend it to anybody that has a similar interest in style as me, and it's been my go-to. And that's all we've got for this week. If you also have ridden a Berzerker, tell me in the comments what you think about it, or if you're thinking about a Berzerker, comment and ask me a question. We'll be back next week with an episode about the niche Aether. So be sure not to miss that by liking and subscribing and get those notifications that, hey, here's more. Mahalo nut iloa means thanks for the ride, and we will see you next time.